There are only two tragedies in life. One is not getting what one wants, and the other is getting it. Oscar Wilde. The incisive brilliance and brevity of Oscar Wilde resulted in volumes of famous quotes that communicated with minimal effort the frailties and ridiculousness of the human condition. Jailed for his open expression of homosexuality, some of his best works emanated from his jail cell at Her Majesty's Prison Reading. Wilde was able to crystallize and communicate with a caustic humor the absurdities of human behavior, while suggesting poetically pragmatic solutions that cut mercilessly through the false niceties of Victorian society. The above quote is one of hundreds and accurately describes the contradiction and confusion of human nature. Man will expend an extraordinary amount of effort chasing a goal that he perceives of great value, only to be disappointed upon capturing the prey. The amusing thing about this aspect of human behavior, perfectly coined in the above phrase, is that despite the number of disappointments his ventures may bring, he continues on the same never-ending cycle, hoping that one day he will be proved wrong. The aspect of the, quote, chase that appeals to his primitive nature is the self-confirmation that he is in possession of the ability to achieve his personal goals, thus confirming his validity and bolstering his ego. The actual capture of the prey is invariably anticlimactic, and, in a surprisingly short period of time, his interest wanes to the point of abandonment to be replaced by yet another quest. This is the journey of man, the chase, the catch, and then the loss of purpose. A man without purpose, that takes no risks, does not challenge life, will inevitably leave this dimension overflowing with regrets. The things we chase in life are fueled by our desire, which is in fact the experience we all fundamentally crave. Whatever material we think we crave, it is not the actual entity our soul desires. It is actually the moments in between taking the decision to chase and procuring the prey that constitute the most memorable segments of our existence. Oscar Wilde knew this well and lived his bohemian life fully, understanding the frailty of the material world while vigorously immersing his talents in the writing arts. The activity occupied his fertile mind and led to some of the greatest literary works of the 18th century. His irreverence and distrust of the Victorian system prompted his frequent outbursts of sarcasm and cutting wit. As well as being an accomplished author, raconteur, and poet, he unwittingly became one of the Victorian era's most respected social commentators, displaying his acerbic wit and probing intellect in the dissection of what would now be considered odd social interactions. His ability to acutely observe the mating games of the Victorian male and female most likely led to the above expression, as it became evident over time that once the man had completed his conquest, his real tragedy then began. A lifetime of misery stuck in the sinking sand of marriage. The wisdom of Oscar Wilde is the distilled version of the millions of voluminous self-help books that waffle on in endless chapters with no real point or defined message. I would suggest that anyone in need of emotional, spiritual, or cultural guidance spend some time with the writings of this man. He humorously analyzes human behavior with short, poignant pieces that are remarkably rememberable. Getting it sounds so final and somewhat depressing. I think most people would agree that their emotional state during the chase or during the construction of any project is one of elevation and joy, with a childlike expectation of completion. Completion, however, is invariably anticlimactic, and unless you have the New York Symphony Orchestra announcing what a good job has been done, it is not unusual for the participants to feel a sense of depression. After all, their purpose for the time being has come to an end, and this really drives home the point that Oscar Wilde was indirectly making, which is that joy is most experienced during the process of getting something, with the something being almost irrelevant. There are, of course, more than two tragedies in life, but what Oscar Wilde has done with this expression is essentially clarify the entirety of human experience into two categories. His gift of communicating the complex via the brief statements, and at times dictates, reflects the rapidity with which his mind processed events, concepts, actions, and people, and to then produce pieces of wit-filled wisdom that have survived the ages. There can be no doubt that his own personal challenges, and particularly the persecution he sustained as a consequence of his homosexuality, honed his oratorical and literary skills, for quite often great writings require great loss. There are, of course, many lessons for us in his words of guidance. The above expression is essentially saying that anything we chase to possess becomes almost valueless the moment we seize it. This on the surface seems an oddity, but if one scratches the facade of human behavior, it becomes very clear that very little is actually needed. Food, water, shelter, companionship, and what most individuals think they need occurs as a result of social conditioning. The environment in which humans live will generally dictate the things the individual perceives he wants. An example of this is, in my opinion, the excessively consumerist society of the United States, where the interminable cycle of material acquisition perpetuates a condition of permanent dissatisfaction, for there is always the next car, house, cell phone to be colonized.